All right, welcome to the Robert Show. Hello, everyone. I'm super excited. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Robert Show. I'm your host, Robert Jain, and today we have an incredible lineup of guests from Databricks, where we'll be diving deep into latest insights from their State of Data Plus AI report. You might have seen me, sending out some posts around the report. I kind of got a chance to have a deeper look into it, and I was so excited. And I'm like, I definitely need to meet the authors, and obviously talk more about it, get more details into it. So, joining us today are Kunal Marva, Solutions Architect at Databricks and the technical lead of the State of Data Plus AI report, and Kobe Crawford, developer advocate at Databricks and head community evangelist at Mosaic ML. We are thrilled to have them with us to unpack the key trends, industry breakdowns, and what the future holds for Data Plus AI. So, without any further ado, let's jump right in and bring them up here. Kunal, Kobe, welcome to the Robert Show. So excited to have you both.
Hey, thank you so much, Rob. We're really excited for it. Appreciate it. And hey, hello to your audience. Looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, so
Awesome.
great to be here. Thank you for having us. This is a fantastic situation opportunity. Love your show. Been really happy to sort of like have the opportunity to learn a little bit more about your show by watching some of your previous episodes and seeing how well you get into the technical topics and share them with the audience.
I love it as well, and it's always a pleasure hosting, obviously leaders like yourself and who've been, working the data and AI space since years. Obviously, just for our audience, would you like to quickly introduce yourself? Tell us more about what are you doing at Databricks? What are you working on? And also today, what are we going to talk about? So, Kobe, would you like to go first?
Sure. I'm a developer advocate at Databricks. I came in through the acquisition of Mosaic ML back in 2023,
Nice.
where I was head of community. And what we're doing in developer relations at Databricks is working on building communities and connecting people around these technologies to help push the state of the art forward and to help get people the practical things they need to understand to be able to put these technologies to use that make good business sense. And the great thing about
Mm-hmm.
being a developer advocate is that my point of view needs to be in support of people who are actually doing the work, the practitioners. And so I do more than just sort of think about it from the point of view of saying, like, here's our product feature and how great it is. I also want to say, like, here's the notion of what a complete solution is and how people put these things together to actually get business value out of it.
That's awesome. Kunal?
So, hi everyone. My name is Kunal Marwa. I am a solutions architect with Databricks. I've been part of the company for about 2 years now. So, my primary area of focus is retail, consumer goods. So, I'll work with different retail customers across the board. Some that are have been using Databricks for years, some that are starting out, and the whole idea is kind of how do you adopt Databricks into their tech stack in terms of it could be like
Mm-hmm.
engineering, building some sort of rudimentary data models, doing SQL, BI workloads, and then of course now with Mosaic coming on, if there are any Gen AI appetite. So it's kind of like end to end, working through like
Yeah.
some it could be discovery or others it could be like helping them productionize something.
Okay, that's fantastic. And great work that you are already doing in this space in obviously ramping up the game for Databricks. I'm kind of excited today because I know you all came up with the State of Data and AI Plus report. I'm excited to obviously learn a little about it, but just for our audience, would you like to introduce a little about the report? And I can bring up the report, what report I'm talking about for our audience. This is the one, and I'll definitely share a link with you all. You all can download it and learn more about it. But Kunal, Kobe, would you like to tell a little about the report as well?
Yeah, for sure. And so, the idea here is Databricks has been in a very fortunate. So we have 10,000 plus global customers across multiple crowds. And what we are
Mm.
able to do is compile some of this sort of anonymized customer information and get macro level trends over the past year, over the past 18 months, and then help like business executives or practitioners out in the field that may be just like starting their AI journey. And they may
Mm-hmm.
hey, what are the Python packages that are used for time series forecasting? Or it could be like, hey, what kind of governance is being used? Or what are other industries doing? So that was sort of the whole idea is to compile everything in one report so that you can help like, business leaders and decision makers kind of delve into what the current state looks like.
That's awesome. Kobe, what do you think about the report? Did you get a chance to have a deeper look into it?
Of course, of course. We pick up pieces of this all the time internally to make sure that we're looking at things from the point of view of here's what's going on in terms of large scale trends, as Kunal mentioned. One of the interesting things, of course, I'd love to point out is although these data are specific to people who are actually on Databricks platform in one form or another,
Mm-hmm.
it still feels reflective of broader trends throughout the industry. People may have sort of sense like, oh well, if it's only about people at Databricks, then this is only going to be relevant to people who are already on Databricks. But I think that actually a lot of these trends actually translate pretty well outside of sort of this Databricks platform specific. Obviously, just the fact that someone uses a Python package or not, right? The Python programming language is not something that's exclusive to Databricks. So the notion that these packages and their usage, sort of with this populational dynamics that we're pulling out, can be broadly applicable to more people is something I think people should feel comfortable saying. Yeah, it's a fair assessment.
Okay, that's fantastic. Those are fantastic insights. Thanks for being. Also, obviously, when I got a chance to have a look at the report, I was kind of there are a lot of statistics. Obviously, a lot of survey that has gone into the game. But one thing that kind of obviously was a highlight to me was about the stats that said over 1,000% more ML models went into production just this year. What do you think is driving this trend? Because I was when I looked at it and I'm like, okay, that's a lot. What do you guys think? Why is it happening, Kunal?
I think there are two aspects to it. I think one is the whole that we live in now, the age of Gen AI and machine learning, and
Mm-hmm.
it could be a little bit of FOMO. Hey, if X my competitor is using it, then I should be using it. And so I think it's a little bit of FOMO. I think it's been a little bit of organizations, part of like maybe traditional industries like healthcare, finance, government, that have always looked at data science and like, oh, it's not for us. But I think now with the advent of the GPTs and like all the other sort of AI applications available, people are now delving into it much more or taking it much more seriously. And the thought process has just been, let's not just dabble in it, let's not just create an experiment and be like, oh, see, we did something and it doesn't work out. I think now the focus is more and more, how do we put it into production, how do we get the gains out of it, efficiencies out.
Mm-hmm.
So I think now, with because of all these aspects of just the Gen AI age, and the other one thing I would mention is that because of the easy access to compute and AI tools, like 10 years ago, I used to do data science, and like the ability to build a model and like do feature engineering and then putting it to production used to require like three separate departments, like exporting this file and then like trying to retrain something. And I think it just became so difficult that you would eventually give up, or you're like, it's not, the juice is not worth the squeeze. But
Mm-hmm.
now with the easy access and all these tools that are available, I think people are like, hey, we want to use it and it's easy to use it, and like, let's go give it a shot. So I think that's kind of been my sort of takeaway while working on this.
Yeah,
That's
I would
awesome.
second that part in particular about the increased ease of use. For the sake of our platform specifically, there are tools that we have released and deployed that have made it possible. There are some great additional features in how ML Flow, our monitoring and deployment and image tracking library works, that have really made that pipeline much easier to deploy. So there's some ease of use things that are big there. The other thing that I'll mention is, although the Gen AI trend is obviously the hot space, ML models, broadly speaking, have been used in other ways. And so people getting
Mm-hmm.
more and more comfortable with ML broadly across all the spaces, again, talking about time series, talking about predictive analytics and a bunch of other things, even classic things like boosted trees or other things that you would have seen already being deployed with something like scikit-learn or what have you, those are also becoming considerably more popular along with Gen AI. So all of these things are going together to see that trend be so large. One of the things that I think that people might overlook quickly is like Gen AI, as hot as it is not the only piece of the story. In fact, the bulk of what people are doing is still in the traditional ML models, even as, of course, the Gen AI growth is fast.
I love it. It's more about, what I'm kind of hearing from both of you is about the ease of access for people at this moment and the ease of use, how it's kind of all coming together. That's what that's what is actually happening. Also, I would like to actually bring up the stats, what I'm kind of talking about, just for our audience. but this is how it looks like. Any other thoughts around, obviously the overall and the number of customers? I see you all have, done it through the year over year growth on this one. Kunal, any thoughts?
Yeah, I would say the if you look at the foundation or the pillar of any data science model, it kind of starts with
Mm-hmm.
data engineering, and that in turn starts with acquisition to data and the ability to do exploratory data analysis. And I think, of course, like Databricks is really easy in terms of data engineering, but other tools as well. I think the more people have access to information, and
Yep.
governance, of course, becomes a huge part of it, and the ability to clean information, ability to create features that are easily recreatable and then shared across teams, that all sort of contributes in a large part, where you are like, hey, I built these features, I'm building X number of models, but hey, team, my next team can also do the same thing. And I think that's kind of what we are seeing here. We kind of, in a way, at a high level, look at ML flow, which is sort of the framework that Databricks is used on uses. And what you do is, yeah, you're seeing like a 2x increase in customers, just the number of customers in terms of how many put into production, and of course 1,000 in terms of number of models that were registered. So it's no longer just experimentation. It's like, hey, we've done the hard work of cleaning data and like analyzing it, and now we want to put it in like the rubber meets the road kind of thing. See how
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, and there's obviously also one more thing that y'all have kind of, obviously put together. When I went more into the details of the report, I saw the industry wise, and I've actually, obviously pulled that up as well. So, what do you think about the industries who kind of, and how is it now increasingly where the implementation is now happening? How do you see that?
I think the big takeaways that I got when we were sort of compiling this is, one is retail, right? I think
Right.
retail was always kind of good, but they have kind of taken it to the next level. I'm kind of biased here because I work with retail customers, so all the
True.
double thumbs up to all the people I work with. But I think because just with retail, the seasonality aspect of it, in terms of
Mm-hmm.
inventory management, upcoming trends, I mean the pace at which stuff works, that was one big takeaway. And then the other one was finance, which was surprising because in a way it is not, because when you look at finance as an industry, there are so many different applications, from risk management to credit scoring, stock market analysis, ability to want to process structured unstructured information. I think they have kind of taken the biggest leap in terms of becoming efficient. And I think that kind of shows a little level of maturity. Maybe now there is ML and AI maturity in these industries, and that's what's leading them to take like the ratio. And just so that everybody knows, what that ratio means is, last year, they, for a financial sector as a whole, they used to take 29 experiments to put one model in production. And now
Mm-hmm.
what we are seeing a year later, or the 13 months later, it's about down to 10. So what you're seeing is the dev time has reduced almost, by more than half, almost by one third. And so that effectively, increases efficiency, gives confidence to people, business users. You're like, hey, my teams can deliver all these models, and then put that into like ML ops production, and have them look at the real world.
Yeah, no, I think those are fantastic insights. Kobe, what's your thought process about the industries? How are
Well,
you seeing them, obviously implementing it and taking it to the next level?
there's two things I think. One, as this chart also shows, one of the things that you're seeing is that the trend is relatively consistent across all of the industries, that they're all getting more efficient.
Right?
They're clearly like sort of like there's a certain aspect of it that looks like a bigger hill to climb. Like, for example, when you're looking at financial services, but if you look at the ratio from the first month, February 23, to March of this year, you've got something close to a 3-to-1 ratio. If you look at the top one, at communications, media, and entertainment, it's that same 3-to-1 ratio. And as you run down each of these industries, that broader trend of getting more efficient in learning what it takes to get a model ready for
Mm-hmm.
production has improved across all the industries relatively well. And I think that one of the things that you see is just how much more, for want of a better term, you might say, for what more conservative a particular industry is in terms of wanting to see more experimentation and needing greater validation, when you see the comparisons of the number of experiments before you get to the place where you feel comfortable putting a model in production. And so those industries that are a a little more comfortable with putting something in production have continued to stay sort of at the forefront of that. And that trend is probably good in that they're probably making choices where going into production with it, they have a better sense of the risk controls that they need, and they have a better sense of how to govern things to minimize the negative possible side effects of things not going the way that they want, as well as having better measurement. And this is really actually one of the things that I'm going to be harping on over time is measurement, metrics, and improving the metrics that you have in front of you so that you can actually compare how a model is doing against either your gold standard or how the previous model did, so that you can really have an informed decision about iterating forward as you improve what you do with AI. So that's actually the metrics area is one of the biggest things that we want to continue to see improve. And we have some great features that have been put in to help with that. But broadly speaking, we're also seeing that our customers know what they want and are getting better at metrics as well. But it is a journey. We're all still on it. It's not something where it's like it's a solved problem as of now.
Yeah, I like it how you said it's more about, it's still a journey and you have to, keep experimenting, keep getting better at it. Just keep doing it. So thanks for sharing that, Kobe. Also, I know for a fact where Databricks has a unique position point when it comes to Gen AI. Y'all are much ahead in the game as compared to obviously the competitors that y'all have. But in general, how are companies actually approaching Gen AI? I'm pretty sure you both of you, obviously, you work. Kobe, you very close to the community. Kunal, you're close to the customers, and even you, Kobe. So, what are your thoughts when it comes to companies approaching Gen AI? How are you seeing it, Kobe?
Well, the first thing that I've observed with people around Gen AI is that the classic chatbot application is usually the first thing that they want to do. It's really just putting a natural language conversational interface in front of a tool that they already have that is about querying a database or doing some other kind of lookup or synthesis of information that they already have. So it's just a matter of like a sweeter, simpler interface for more people to be able to engage with. And I think that also makes a lot of sense. People beginning with something that's tractable, that has a clear sense of what the right answer is, and understanding how to get that model to yield the same right answer that they would have otherwise gotten from a SQL query, some dashboard that they built in some other fashion. That's essentially a great way to start. So a lot of people are starting that way, and then going forward from there to more sophisticated and more deeply integrated solutions and how Gen AI can apply to those. There's a massive voyage of discovery going on with that. And I think that every industry, every customer uniquely is finding that they really do have to think about what their needs are specifically in terms of identifying what the best Gen AI infused answer is. And then from Databricks' point of view, that's actually like a thesis that really resonates strongly with the way that we approach things. The idea that what we're providing companies is the ability to make the intelligence on their data specifically does mean that it is going to be something about their business use case that is unique, and that they can't just count on something being sort of generic and off the shelf as being like all that can be done to get it right for what their businesses need.
Yeah, fantastic. Kunal, what do you think?
I would say, as a developer or somebody used to dabble with writing Python code and struggling with it for hours, I would say the number one Gen AI application I have faced or I tell customers is helping with debugging. And it often overlooked, but it's a massive productivity gain, just because like how many times have we gone to Stack Overflow and we like or spend hours like going through thread after thread and just to get
Oh
down
my
to
God,
an answer.
so
And I
true.
think that's the LLM, or whatever the sophistication that we've been able to achieve. And so that just from the an engineering point of view, I would say I think working with a little bit of retail customers, I would like the ability to grab unstructured text information and provide some sort of summarization and sentiment. I think that has been like the starting point. And of course, as Kobe mentioned, chatbots are definitely number one, but you get into the customer service aspects of it, or the any of the RAG applications that are out there. I think that has been the starting point, like just so that, hey, because that's much easily, you can see a real world impact in doing stuff like that. Some of the back end stuff,
True.
like like I would give you one example. Like, we say a lot of Gen AI can be used to optimize ETL code. And because there's so many nooks that you can have, like if you have like 25 users running SQL statements on a system, there are so many efficiencies that over time you can gain. But those are not real world, you don't see that. Like, so if you're trying to pitch something to a business, you're like, hey, let me take 5,000 documents in SharePoint and help you, like build your application so that you can generate a new text or new project out of it. So I would say text generation is definitely the first point, but again, much more to come.
Yeah, I think it's constant learning. That's what I'm kind of hearing as well. Is not only just from obviously the leaders working in the space, but also from the enterprise leaders. They always feel like Kobe mentioned. Chatbot is the first place where we want to start and see the impact in get more into the weeds of how it all works, what type of what type of results the ROI we are kind of getting out of it, and then take it to the next step where now, okay, fine, we'll get into more complexity. But Kunal, I agree, obviously, even if it's I can hear you. I meet a lot of developers, and obviously 4 years 3 years back it used to be like, oh, we on Stack Overflow, we're kind of looking at this code, and we're kind of wanting to solve this. We've been stuck on it since last 2 days, but with obviously GenAI, things have kind of eased up. It has become much more faster, but yeah, it's improving, and it is getting there for sure. Also, just a
One thing to
follow-up
add.
question.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, no, no. You were saying something. Go
No,
ahead,
no, I
please.
think I was just saying, just in terms of the Gen AI, one thing that I'm also seeing, especially on the retail side, or we talk about a lot, is like personalization. Like a
Mm,
product copy is a great example where you're looking at images, or you're looking at different products, but they're standard description. And what if you could build personalized descriptions based on the occasion or based on some of the demographic information? Like that has been a very popular, like our area of interest, I would say, that we talk a lot about. So that's just one example of taking the
yeah.
text and sort of using it in the real world.
I think you made a very important point, Kunal, here in terms of, obviously when in retail, I know that happens a lot. I talk to like a few Amazon product managers as well, and they always have that thing where they feel that, okay, we are now getting more insights, but at the same time, we are, the product description, through the product description, we can do so much more. So I think you're right in GenAI, obviously the product descriptions, the other things which, product managers look at has also become easier. But even for those who are engineers out there. So, yeah, my follow-up question actually was around what else should actually companies think about as they fine-tune their GenAI strategies and seriously consider integrating them? Like, what are your thoughts around that front?
I'll let
Well,
Kobe go first. Go ahead.
sure, I'll dive in. I think that one of the keys about where Gen AI strategy is going to go over time is that the people are still really looking for the clear ROI wins. Um, and I think that one of the challenges really is going to be for people to really find them. It's not something where it's obvious right now, broadly speaking. And I think that the market really is going to, like, as it stands today, one of the funny things that Kunal actually mentioned earlier are this notion of the FOMO, where everybody's getting into this space because they don't want to be like left behind. It is absolutely the case that AI is going to infuse just about every industry, just about every business. I think that anybody who wants to say that AI won't be there, it really is sort of taking it really actually is taking a risk in terms of like that. That being said, I think that over
Yeah.
time, what's going to happen is we're going to see people needing to be more wise in their choices about exactly where to invest and how, and really sort of find those places where the ROI is there and is sustainable. So the real keys are going to be where do they really drive their users, whether it's the customers or their employees, where are they driving the users' efficiency, where they're driving their productivity, and really sort of seeing the value. When you mentioned coding example for is it's a perfect spot to think about, because coding and these kinds of things, and how AI assistants help with
True.
coding, the productivity gains, the speed with which people are able to develop code that it at least gets them close to the right area of where they need to be in terms of functional goals, is really impressive. And the way that people get there is actually by practicing that, by actually putting it to use. And for example, Databricks, we here's how a way in which we drink our own champagne or dog food. That our own assistant functionality is also being built with generative AI. So when people work in our Databricks notebooks and they need like a SQL query to be generated, or they need a particular piece of Python code written, they actually can begin with a natural language input to say, I need a piece of code like this, and then let the assistant help them. And that assistant is just a little bit better in that it is already infused with understanding of the customer's own data, their own schemas, and their own structure. So they're able to really provide really good, really usable code snippets right out of the gate. So that kind of thing, where you see the productivity gain, you really actually see the material benefit right there. That's the kind of thing that our customers also need to continue to look for in their businesses. And I love the fact that like Kunal is actually in a better position to talk about what customers actually are getting in terms of like some of their examples, because he's actually working with them closely. And so I really would love it. Kunal, do you want to like any examples you want to bring up about where that's coming from?
Yeah, I think the one thing, I think, we are sort of at a beginning stages of Gen AI. So what are the lot of the applications or problems that people are looking at is customer facing or front end. But I think eventually what will happen is a lot of the back end stuff, like, a lot of the stuff that is not in front of our eyes. Like, I'll give you guys a healthcare example just because I come from the healthcare space. Is
Yeah, would love to.
like health insurance, like there is so many like manual aspects of it, like medical coding, like you taking patient charts, people having to review it, then trying to find the right kind of billing codes to do all that stuff. I think we will get into a stage where we can have fine tuning, or even like completely build LLMs built from scratch, that are experts in doing certain kinds of patients, that are able to be billed much quicker, or where are their symptoms are able to be diagnosed quicker. So I think back end is probably one other aspect that I would say, especially with retail, supply chain management, inventory forecasting. And then I think ultimate goal, I would say, is like the stage three is, well, what we kind of call compound AI systems, where like the
Mhm.
best example becomes is like the self-driving car, where there are so many of them working together that you don't see the Gen AI of it. It's no longer distinguished. It's part of the single process. It's like multiple
True.
components. It's like kind of like mimicking a human body, where you have all these organs working in harmony, producing output. So I think that's kind of the ultimate goal. I think still a while to get to there, but I think that's the aim.
Yeah, no, I love it. Thanks for sharing that example, and thanks for sharing all the insights, Kobe. Also, a quick question that I have. I also saw in the report, there's a lot of mention around the increase in AI and ML adoption across various industries, like we discussed about, right? So, how do you see this influencing the job market for data professionals, especially in roles like data scientists and ML engineers? What do you kind of think about that, and how are you looking at that? Kunal?
So I'll give you a little snippet. I am actually a biomedical engineer who started off as a data
Wow.
analyst and then moved to data science. So I would tell you two things with this. It excites me. I mean, the Gen AI and ML age. I think it's going to make statistics cool. So I think all the statistics people, because I have to take so many stats class, and all that. I think it will become stats will become much cooler, and I think that just the ability to learn math, or like get into those skills at a collegiate level, I think that would be something that people would focus on. I think the other thing I see is any kind of data science or machine learning that we look at, one of the biggest key components is domain level expertise. And I think you have a lot of experienced people who have been in industries for 10, 15 years, that their
Mm,
experience is just unmatched. And I think this gives all those people an opportunity to sort of upskill. You're like, hey, I've been dabbling with Excel and SQL, but now I have all these tools that just with the drag and drop I can build AI, Gen AI application. But I know the domain level. And that's kind
Mm.
of what we're trying to do with LLMs, right? We're trying to get them domain level expertise. So I think it's two aspects. I think one is people who are studying math and science. I think it gives them a huge leg up, and then domain level experts, I think, have automatically just become so much more attractive.
Mm.
I'm going to double down on that and expand it just a little farther. In addition, which is just, and what I want to say is this: that just like the journey that we've been on, in past generation, where people got comfortable with using computers as tools to solve business problems in all the businesses, and got on board with the internet and started to use internet connectivity as a way for people to share information and have APIs and access through that. Uh, AI savvy, at least enough savvy to be able to use it well, is going to be something that not just the data scientists and people, the data experts need to know, but actually the people in all of their fields, wherever they are, need to know. And so the broader knowledge of how to use AI, I think at a fundamental level, companies that are providing the technology, providing the picks and shovels through which people will do the work, that is one layer of what's going to happen. But broadly speaking,
Mm.
everyone is going to be bringing AI into what they do, and that's actually probably I would claim kind of the most important trend. And the reason I claim it's the most important trend is because everyone's domain expertise around what they do in their business. We've talked about healthcare a bit, we've talked about retail a bit, but all of these business types, if you're an airline, if you're in the business of making, manufacturing, whatever widget, all of these places, those specific expertise are places where, like, the use of AI has to be brought in with people who can really evaluate, is the AI doing well at what we've been doing manually
Mm.
before this point. And so their expertise in their domain specifically has to be there for the AI to be successful at being a good productivity tool, productivity gain for all of us. So in that way, I think that not just the data scientists are going to need to have some AI knowledge, but I think everybody's going to have to pick it up.
Yeah, no, I think fantastic points there, Kobe. Also, Kobe, since we are on this topic, obviously, of trends, and obviously, I also had a look when I looked at the report. I saw this data and AI products in the option there. So I would love to, bring that up for our audience here, and also would love to hear your thoughts because you've been working in the open source space and you've been working, obviously, a lot with the developers too. What are your thoughts about the top 10 data and AI products? What do you think?
This is a great chart, and all of the different tools that are already listed here that are being used on the Databricks platform are, coming from organizations that are doing fantastic work, and I'm really excited about that. I highlight a couple, and then sort of speak to what those broader trends mean to me.
Yep,
One, seeing the boost, kind of almost simultaneous boost in Hugging Face's numbers and LangChain's numbers, are
exactly.
like it's not sort of correlation, causation. We don't want to talk about that. But what I would say is that boost is coming from this compound AI systems trend that Kunal already mentioned. Um, LangChain as a tool. Similarly, there's another one, Llama Index. There's another one that I'm watching currently, which is actually focused on how to refine and improve how language models work, which is called DSPy. Each of
Mm.
these tools are, in essence, like the next level up from talking solely about a particular language model as being interesting. It's really about how are you integrating multiple tools, multiple functionalities together into a compound system, and watching that be the sense of, like, this is now the level at which we develop an application. So now, instead of
Mm.
thinking about one particular language model as being the thing, as Kunal mentioned, there's going to be many different things that are going on, some of which are AI infused, some of which might be more traditional software development, and each of these pieces together become a part of a larger composite system. So those bumps, seeing LangChain grow, seeing Hugging Face's growth, those things are going to be the place where you see, as people import a model from Hugging Face, what they're saying is that they're able to use models that are hosted at Hugging Face, which are therefore open models that people have access to and can download and put to use. They're finding more use for open models. When they're using LangChain or they're using these other libraries, they're integrating those open models into more complex systems. And so those trends are the things that are going to be like the sort of the next sort of step function for how AI gets used well. So that was a big takeaway for me, like because those are the bumps. Like everything else, the trends
Yep.
are sort of largely sort of following sort of like a continued broader adoption,
Yes.
broader comfort level, like with sort of like a general smooth line. But those bumps are really interesting.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. And exactly what I was kind of wondering as well when I looked at Hugging Face and Langchain, I'm like, those are huge bumps to and huge spikes. But then, obviously, for obvious reasons, and even like Llama Index and other ones that you kind of mentioned, I'm closely watching them. But thanks for sharing those insights. One more thing I remember Kunal mentioned at the start of the show is about uh, AI, Gen AI, everything's good, but the governance, right? How it kind of plays a very important role. And that was another thing that caught my eye when I was kind of looking at the report was adoption of unified governance. And Unity, obviously, Unity Catalog plays a very important role there. So I'm kind of curious to know from you, Kunal, how do you look at the industries? What are you seeing in the retail or other industries? And I'm going to pull this up because this is what I saw in the report. So, what are your thoughts about it, and how much? Like, obviously, we've seen over quarters your, but how better is it getting, and what do you see in the next year? How where do you see it going?
Yeah, I think I think from the chart itself, I'll actually before I get into the chart, I'll tell you guys like I think governance in any kind of analytical platform is one of the key pillars because of
Mm,
security and like stuff like HIPAA that we talk about, GDPR, in the EU. So that you
true.
kind of have to have governance in place as one of the bedrocks of any analytical foundation, whether it be Unity or other products. And the reason I think even now more in sort of the Gen AI age is because so many different teams need to come together to build one Gen AI application, but they may not have access to the same granular level, or they may not need it or require it. For example, like a customer data, if you're bringing that in, a data engineering team may see like the non-anonymized or like the identifiable version, but by the time it hits the data science, they want to like encrypted address. They don't want it to be like none of the PII information should be revealed. So stuff like row-based security, column-based security, all that stuff becomes very pivotal. And then the ability to then sort of like take that access across your organization and make sure that it's not like duplicating it, like stuff with ACLs and stuff like that. So I think those are like the pillars of data governance and Unity catalog that we talk about. If you see in this chart, I think I mentioned HIPAA and like some of the financial stuff. Our finance and healthcare, which are the regulated industries, they have the highest adoption, and I think it is because they are so careful in terms of how data should be protected and privacy of customers and patients should be protected. I think that's why we've seen the biggest uptake. And in the Databricks platform, a lot of the features that have been launched, we are mandating that the governance should already be in place. So we are kind of doing
Nice.
somewhat like, like, hey, you can't use a Gen AI or you can't use like a model serving if there is no, Unity catalog in place or stuff like that. So that's kind of been like the biggest, I would say, adoption, and for, for
Right.
the right reasons. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love it 100%. Any thoughts, Kobe, around the governance piece?
Yeah, the thing that I think is really interesting, in particular when thinking about uh, the development of AI models, is that the data sets themselves were not originally thought of in terms of this same kind of version control, not because they didn't want to, but because the patterns and habits that people had in terms of software were really built around source code management. And so a lot of
Mm,
the patterns that were there. And one of the interesting trends that I got to be privy to some of the trends of being better about governing data in terms of like versioning data sets and stuff like that, all the way back to my time at Apple. I was a part of the AIML organization there, and throughout the time as we've seen the growth of using larger and larger data sets for model training, one of the things that had to become a new norm was how do we do the same kind of governance and management of data sets, whether that is a raw data set, literally just sitting a pile of files in an S3 bucket, or a particular state of a particular table, a particular tabular data that you were using as an input. And this is
But
where what we're doing with Unity Catalog and the data governance thing that Databricks is bringing to the table really starts to shine, because you're able to apply that same level of governance to data sets, where instead of thinking about source code management, which is tens, hundreds of kilobytes of text, now you're talking about terabytes, petabytes of data, and actually be able to still have the ability to say, we know exactly the state of what data was used to train this model, and being able to control that and then keep a sense of the versioning and iteration is both a new and interesting challenge, the volume of data involved and changes there, but also vitally important for reproducibility in this area, and vitally important for like the where things are going now, because now you don't think about an application as being solely about the source code anymore. The source
mm,
data is absolutely a part of the application functionality, as we've seen through so many different aspects of how machine learning and generative AI are done, like the source data, data quality, exactly what mix of data you use across different cases and particular classes. Each of these things really, really matter. So it's really important for this governance to be something that everyone values and prioritizes. And I really think that, like, if you look at what Unity Catalog is offering now, it is, absolutely sort of like in the vanguard of what people need to be doing broadly.
love it. Those are fantastic insights, Kobe. Also, keeping time in mind, one last question for both of you. Looking ahead, what do you think will be the next big trend in AI ML landscape? And what advice do you have for companies to be prepared for?
Kunal, you want to go for that first?
No, no, Kobe, I'll let you go.
Fair enough. Fair enough. If I were to pick one key trend right now, I think that trend is actually about observability
Hmm.
and measurement. We all need to get really clear about how we track what happens. And I think one of the trends that I've sort of loved seeing called out in a couple of places is sort of the difference between what you have to do in a generative AI kind of space compared to traditional software testing. Um, so this is going to be a thing that we're going to have to see, like, people really sort of moving forward with and learning how to do
Hmm.
better. Because traditional software testing, there was an exact expected answer, and that exactness, was easy to validate. So the test either passed or failed in a byte for byte, bit for bit, uh, perfect way. Generative AI throws all of that out the window. So instead of being able to say, I know exactly this result should come out, I have to be able to say, this result is qualitatively consistent with what I expect. And so it changes the name of the game from being more about testing in this pass fail way to observability in this qualitative observation way. And we're playing a lot of different games with that. LLM as a judge as one kind of technique that people are using to try to help let AI automate our own validation of AI. There are a bunch of other things that are coming along, but this observability trend is, I think, the thing that's going to be sort of like where we need to get to really help people get even more confidence in what AI applications can do for us, and figure out how to unlock the next use cases.
Sounds good. Observability and monitoring is something. Kunal, what do you think?
I think one thing that I'm seeing is maybe a more easy integration, or maybe a better union of like classical machine learning and the new, Gen AI or neural network based learning that's coming about. Because when you look at, like, if, like, for example, like forecasting is a really good example, like having softwares that can automatically say, hey, here the idea is to use an ARIMA or a regression, and then suddenly, like, based on the size of the data, as the scale increases or performance goes down, it automatically then switches to like a transformer based model, and its ability to sort of work together. I haven't seen that yet. Maybe there are some like beta versions out there which are sort of marrying the old with the new. I think that's one thing I would love to see, or I'm sure like that in
Hmm.
the next while. And then the other one being is, I think a lot of the like customers I speak with, I think a lot of emphasis still is right now on text. I think, but I think eventually, like, I think more will be on the multimodal, where, like healthcare, again, going back to my, is we have so much, like, like CT scans and X-rays, and like, that ability to, like, kind of do, maybe if not diagnosis, ability to help, caregivers or provide physicians with some sort of, information. So I think that's kind of where, like, all industry wise, because right now I think there are trends around CME and, like, media, where you can see, like, images being generated, but that trend and, sort of flowing into other industries. I think those would be the two big ones.
Okay, those are fantastic ones. Kunal, thanks for sharing. Okay, I promise this is the last question, and it's about if folks who are attending today or in general as well, if they want to reach out, have questions for both of you, where can they reach out? Is LinkedIn a good place? Any email, or what do you guys prefer? Kunal?
Yeah, I mean, I think, LinkedIn is probably the best place if you have any, like, questions around Databricks in general, or if you want to have a conversation. I think, yeah, that's generally the ones, because emails, I think sometimes they get, lost in. And so,
Yes.
yeah, happy, I'm like a nerd at heart, so happy to talk about trends, data, Databricks in general. Yeah, would love to hear from your audience.
Love it.
I'm
Kobe?
on LinkedIn and Twitter. On
Awesome.
Twitter, I'm Kobe One, KOBIEWON. Uh, and then LinkedIn, just I have the great fortune of having a name that isn't frequently found. So if you look up Kobe Crawford, you find.
Okay, that's awesome. So, first of all, a big thank you to both of you, Kunal, Kovi, for doing this, sharing all the great insights. And for those who attended, I've shared the link of the report for you to download. Feel free to download. But if you all have any questions, you all can reach out to Kunal and Kovi. I've put them into uh, the tag. I've tagged them on LinkedIn, so feel free to reach out to them. But such a pleasure, great insights, and also thanks to our audience for attending this session. Thanks once again, both of you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank
It's really
you.
been a great chance to have a chat with you. It's fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Love it. A big fan of the show, by the way. I didn't mention that. But thank you.
Thanks, Kunal, and definitely looking for another report very soon. So thank you once again. All right. Thank you.